Hi there. So what we have today for our unboxing is our TP-Link RE650. So we're just going to go through this today. We're looking at some of the specs of this device and how I'm going to set it up for my use. And so let's quickly go through the specs on this device. So of course it's a MIMO, so multi-in multi-out device. It's a range extender and it's an AC2600 dual band. So the dual band is the 5 gigahertz band there, and also we have the 2.4 gigabit band. The AC2600 comes from the two combined, which is the maximum output, which comes out to the 2600. What have we got on the side? We talk about the antennas on this. Talk about the antennas on this device. We've got 4 external antennas which fold out. We have secure one touch WPS connection, so WPS button, which is quite standard for these devices to make your connection to your router, your modem router, which is probably the way we're going to go with this. Okay, it's got a signal indicator, alright, and we've got, which indicates the strong and weak signals, being this colour on the front around this ring here, and it plugs in. It's a plug-in device to your GPO, and we're looking on the back. We've got a sort of a home layout where the extender can be used. So in the situation that this might be used, and we're looking at, and this is very typical to what we have at home. Downstairs we've got our cable internet coming in from our NBN in Australia, and we've got this with this wireless router configuration, and we're looking to put this extender upstairs to give the coverage to teenager bedrooms. And of course everyone's watching 4K this day on their paid TV. It's all coming through on 4K, and we're just finding it's not able to at the moment. Our poor old TP-Link router downstairs is struggling with spreading the band around equally around the house and coping with the load. So we're looking to make this work for us. We've got some more information on the other side. Again, MIMO. This has got a dual core CPU. We've got 4 streams, so they're talking about the 4 streams, 2 in, 2 out, okay, over the 5 and the 2.4 gigahertz band range. Dual band connection. Now a lot of these devices now are going Wi-Fi 6, which this is not Wi-Fi 6, and it also isn't a tri-band. So what would happen if we look at the back picture here? In a tri-band situation, we would be looking at connections coming into the device, alright, over the 2.4 or the 5 gigahertz range, and then it using a separate band to make a connection back to the device, which is the tri-band 5 gigahertz band for that backhaul to your router and out to the internet. So that's why that tri-band is a pretty powerful device. In this situation, what we're planning to do, and this device supports as well, we're going to actually use our backhaul is going to be via hard wiring. So we've got Cat 6 cable laid throughout the house, but of course most of the devices we have in the household are all Wi-Fi these days. So we have connections, we've got the capability of having a wired connection into the area upstairs, and any of these rooms are all wired up, but they don't have good Wi-Fi, so we're going to use the Ethernet port on this device to use the backhaul to our router, so it doesn't congest these lines up here. for the incoming lines. The backhaul back to the device, transmitting the data back to the router, will be by the Cat6 cable, which is a nice, secure, fast link back to the router and back out to the internet. So that's how we're looking to set this up. Alright, it's got beaming technology. So the beaming technology works by looking at where the load's coming from and shaping that traffic and the power into that areas where it's most needed. And access point mode, we've got there, create a new Wi-Fi access point. Okay, so that's what we've just described with the access point. We're going to use the RG6 or Ethernet port on the back of the device, on the side of the device, to make that backhaul back to the router, rather than using one of the bands to also take the load. Easy setup and management. Okay, we'll find out about that. So, okay, so also on the back of here, you also will see the serial number, and you'll probably note, which is probably worth looking at the very moment. I know I was interested, and I'm not sure how everybody else is interested. You know, version 1 here of this device. There is a version 2 out there. Now that version 2 of this device, I haven't been able to find it locally. It is a regional version available, so looking at a mesh unit, you're looking at potentially 2 or 3 nodes or even more in your household, and then those devices create a mesh within the household, and then as you move through it, you have the same SID or Wi-Fi identifier in the household, and basically as you move around the house, you connect to as you get closer to one device and move away from the other device, the new device should seamlessly pick up the Wi-Fi connection and carry the load. I've chosen not to go that way, purely based on a few perceptions of my situation, and when I looked at it, I basically had just a bit of a dead spot in the back bedrooms upstairs. Other than that, my signal's been pretty fine, and it's been a bit slow and congested. The mesh units can start from $300-400 and go up to $2,000, and there's lots to consider when you go into the mesh units. I really didn't want to spend that money. This unit was $160 locally in Australia. It comes, as I said, as a V1 version 1, which cannot be used as a mesh unit. The version 2, apparently the vendor's releasing software to make version 2 of this device mesh compatible. So if you have a mesh router enabled TP-Link mesh unit there, and you have version 2 of this RE650, then potentially with the update you could make this a mesh situation and work between the two devices. I wasn't too worried about that in my situation, because first of all, I'm thinking this unit looking at the area it can cover. It is quite a powerful unit and would cover most large homes, but often you'll find with the mesh units, if you haven't got a good quality one, you'll find that you'll get sticking to each particular device, and depending on what mesh unit you work with, you might find that you'll have a bit of, you'll potentially, as you're walking to a lower level where one unit is, whether the device will release and pick up on the new device. Hopefully it will, depending on the mesh unit. And also the mesh units themselves, depending on how they're set up, can start daisy chaining to each other. And if they start transmitting and have to daisy chain from 1, 2 to make 3 hops potentially to get out to the internet and back again, you'll find you get more congestion the more nodes you add to your house. So adding more nodes in a mesh situation doesn't typically add in performance, because you start bouncing around, flooding your network more with this Wi-Fi data, which is very limited, especially when you're talking 4K pay TV that we're watching at home, which is also gaming as well. So that consumes a lot of bandwidth. So when I weighed it all up, I'm thinking this is the best, cheapest alternative, unless I'm going to spend a fair bit of money on a good mesh unit. I figured this might be the way for me to go, just filling in the hole that I have in my situation, using that backhaul to pick up the performance with a wide connection between the two, so to free up that network, the wireless network. So comes back to if you think this is going to be a mesh unit for you, you'll have to check regionally whether it's a version 2. In Australia, I wasn't able to find a version 2 of this unit. Looking at Amazon as well, there was a version 1 as well available in Australia. So regionally, you might find that you only have the version 1. If you are lucky enough to be in a version 2 area, this unit will also be compatible for a mesh once the vendor, which is TP-Link, releases a firmware update for the device, which reading recent articles within the last few months from TP-Link, I don't believe that software or firmware is readily available yet for even the version 2 of the unit, and doubtful the version 1 will be released at any time soon, or if ever. Okay, so we'll just open this up. We'll just open this up and have a look at the unit itself. All right. Always exciting when you open a new box. I must admit that's something about opening the cling wrap and opening a new box. It's very exciting. We've also got a sticker on the front there that says works fine with any Wi-Fi router, which I expect that would be the case with any device. They shouldn't be isolated to a particular brand. This should be fairly generic. Okay, that's the device. Inside we've got, just look at this, which is handy. We've got an installation guide. Now, we should also mention this particular device from TP-Link has been around for quite a few years, and they're still available. It's as far as I can tell, it's the most powerful device that they have, covering the biggest range. Okay, so we've got the instructions on setup. Okay, so there's 3 methods of setup. You can use a tethered app. You can Ethernet and use a web base, or you can also use the easiest method, which is the WPS button, pressing it on the device and also on your router. Well, as long as it has a WPS button, which most of them do, you'll be able to make that connection without too much trouble. We'll probably go through the web-based setup and give us a bit more configurable capacity to change things and set up as we wish. So anyway, that's in the box. Here we have the unit, and you can see, let's put that aside, you can see this is quite a big unit. If we look at pen there for comparison, this unit is quite large. If you look at plugging this into a PowerPoint, it's going to consume the whole PowerPoint. So if you've got a double PowerPoint, forget about using the second PowerPoint. I'll just take the nice wrap off the front. Okay, so here's our WPS button on the front. It also provides range, whether it changes colour to orange. I believe, I haven't plugged it in yet, but I believe it goes to orange if it's not in a good strength signal there. We've also got the 2.4 light and the 5 GHz light and the power light there. We've got we've got the aerials extend from the side. Okay, and we've got on the side here, we've got the reset, the LED. I'm not too sure. I think this just basically disables your LED. I haven't read the instructions at the moment. And you've got the power button there. Reset is to hold the pin in, which is fairly standard to reset the device back to factory. The other side, again, the other two aerials. They're all important RJ45 connector, which I'm going to use for my backhaul, as I said before, and the two LED indicator for traffic going across that. You can also use this connector if you don't want to use it as an access point and use it. This is a line back to the internet. You can also use this to connect to a physical device, such as a gaming console that has no Wi-Fi and has a hardwired connection. You can also use that port. There's only one single gigabit port there that you can use. Okay. Also, you'd note, which is pretty cool, on the side of this device, lots of cooling vents all the way around, also on the back on both sides. This unit consumes 12 watts of power from memory, which is quite a lot, and I'm thinking it's going to generate a fair bit of heat. Looking at manufacturers put a whole bunch of cooling holes in the back. The two CPUs are going to generate some heat. This particular one is an AU model, so it's got the two pins in the earth, and it's set up for 100 to 240 volts. So you could, if you're in that range, in that megahertz range as well, the 50 to 60 megahertz, 100 to 240 range, you could put this with an adapter in another country. Alright, we've got the serial number down the bottom. You've also got the SSID that comes out of the box standard. Also printed down there for your use. If you put it back to reset to standard, that's what you'll end up getting. And more cooling at the bottom. So that's the unit. That's all that's all that comes in the box. There's a bit of licensing paper in there, which is okay, so that doesn't help me much. Okay, so that's the unit. I must admit it's quite an attractive looking unit. Not that I'm particularly looking to put it on show, but it is quite a smart looking unit. If you had to have it sitting in your lounge room, it's quite smart looking, and there's a bit of weight. There's a bit of weight in the unit as well. So okay, so I might move on with some more information. I don't want to drag through this and make it too boring. There's lots of information out there at the moment for this device, and so I don't want to drag through superfluous information, just information that might be helpful to other people. So I'm just going to go through a bit more detail regarding how I'm going to set this particular device up as an access point. So if you're interested, you might watch on as I go through the cabling and the connection to the router and how that works for me. Okay, we're back now. We've got our TP-Link modem router here, and I just wanted to mock up how I'd make this connection to these devices. So we're just waiting for this to power up, and we're just getting some power lights, and we'll get the network up. This is a connection from the back out to the WAN. So in our case, it's our NBN, a fiber link coming in, but whatever your case, so that goes out to the internet through your WAN, and we're just going to establish. Okay, so we've got our network, the 2.4 and the 5 GHz bands up on the router. So what we'll do now is we'll power up this device, our extender. Okay, so the first thing that's going to happen on your extender is the power light, the blue power light will flash. That means it's booting up. Okay, we'll just give it a minute for that to come up. Okay, so once you've got a solid link on there, you press the WPS button, which is the round button on the front. You press the WPS button on your router and the two will flash. You'll see the blue ring flash on the front, and you'll see your WPS button on your router flash as well. Probably hard to make that out. And as they're establishing the connection, then you'll see the 2.4 and the 5 GHz bands come up. They'll go a solid blue color, okay, and you'll have a connection to those two channels there. Alright, so that's one way to establish the connection. You can also use the application that they give you using the barcode to go through the setup process, or you can also use through a browser. So if you only have one of these lights come on, just press that WPS button for a second time until you get the two bands come up and they both be lit in blue. Okay, so effectively now I could take this, unplug this from here, take it upstairs and put it into my dark spot or my black spot in the house upstairs, and job's done. But what I want to do is go one step further, which is what I wanted to show today, is because I'm going to mock this up. Our house is wired with to the rooms, and they've all got wired connections, so they have Ethernet ports available. So what I will find an area upstairs with the power point and the Ethernet both side by side, and I will plug into the Ethernet port on my extender. I will then, this cable comes across, as you can imagine, this cable runs inside the house. It runs through the walls. If you aren't lucky enough to have this pre-laid, you can sometimes, in a single-story house or even two-story house, you can lay one of these cables if you can. Lay a cable, so we're effectively laying a cable between the router and the modem, which we've already got in place, and it will come in and fit in the back of the router into one of the switch ports in the back. And so now we have the two connected. Okay, you'll notice the lights flashing. We have connectivity now across the LAN. Alright, so why would I do that? Okay, so what's the benefit of doing that if I've already got connection across the wireless? Well, what I'm doing is making this an access point now. So the access point, the incoming Wi-Fi connections come to the device through the 2.4 and the 5 GHz bands, and then it uses this cable as the backhaul out to the internet, to the router, and back out to the internet, and so I'm not congesting my Wi-Fi with the traffic going back to and from the modem and the router and out to the internet. So I'm basically freeing up this Wi-Fi channel for this back talk that's going to go on carrying all that data. So it's one way you can increase performance in creating an access point out of your extender. Just be mindful if your extender is a version 2 and there's a firmware update that makes this a mesh device and you have a mesh running. Once you establish that mesh, if you connect this port as a backhaul to your router, to your second device, you will then lose the mesh functionality. Okay, and there we go. That's a quick, easy setup of how it's set up as an extender, an access point or an extender, and however you want to do it within your household, whatever suits your needs. That's a quick little video. I hope you find it helpful, and if you like it, give me the thumbs up, and if you're interested in seeing more of my little videos, then please follow along. See you guys, catch you next time.